Welcome everybody to another 5-minute Lightroom CC quick edit, and today is quite exciting because I'm going to show you how you can take a normal picture and fake it to make it look like it was taken at sunset in just about 5 minutes. And today's photo was submitted by Alvinge Holsetter. Check him out right here. Now before we can go into the actual editing of making the colors look like it was taken at sunset, I actually have to make the whole picture look a little bit more evened out and, just do the basic editing. What I want to do here is just bring up the shadows a bit, bring down the vibrance, and that's pretty much all I want to do for the starting point. The reason I'm not bringing down the highlights all the way is because I don't like this super HDR-ish look. You know what, let's actually also add a graduated filter for the sky and add even more minus clarity to make it more kind of dreamy and yeah, just kind of cool. So the first thing that you notice is that it's kind of blue in the foreground. So what I'm going to do is just bring up the color temperature, and you want to make sure you don't go too crazy, otherwise it looks just ugly. Going down into the actual split toning, this is a huge thing if you want to do this kind of look. And what you have to do is go first of all into the highlights and just add some warm tones. Now I suggest you to go all the way to 100% so you can actually fine tune the actual hue of the color, and then just bring down the actual saturation to a more reasonable level. Because even though you might think it looks cool at 100 or whatever, you don't want to do that much because you want to use other tools for the colors as well. I'm going to show you that in a second. Then, because you have the highlights so bright, what you want to do is go into the shadows and add some blue tones, which is the opposite of the orange tones, and just make it look a little bit more balanced out. You can also add kind of a cool tint if you want to do that. I'm going to go, in fact, for kind of a more light bluish tonality here. Alright, that looks pretty cool. What I want to do for the color mainly is use gradient filters. So I'm going to add one right here, and for that one I'm going to add even more warm tones, kind of like this. You always want to make sure that you make it look still kind of natural and good looking rather than just completely crazy. You just want to start off light and slowly build it up to make it more colorful. Now with this filter, I'm just going to leave it right here. Going to bring down the highlights slightly. So now I'm going to duplicate it and reset it completely. Go here into the colors of the blues. And what I want is a very dark blue with a lot of saturation for the top right. Because if you just have a very warm tonality everywhere, it doesn't look that great, it doesn't look that interesting. So what I want to do instead is grab a bunch of radial filters and just add a different kind of blue hue. Here definitely a way more light blue, and then you can slowly transition it to make it, even go into the purples, for example, or into the magenta tones. And this is how you get this very distinct sunset look, is by adding these warm and magenta tones, but also the blue tones, because at the start you're working with a picture that wasn't shot at sunset. Now let's just take a second to look at the actual photo, and I think what it needs is definitely some dodge and burning. So I'm going to grab a very big radial filter here, plus exposure, warmth, and also go into the tint, plus whites as well, and make sure that I hold down the Alt key as I make it smaller just from the top, because I don't want to have this area affected that much. Then what I can do is add another one, and as you can see, this person is definitely like one of the main points of this picture. I'll add kind of a big radial filter with a lot of plus exposure. I can make it just a little bit softer, the whole light by minus clarity. Bring down the white so it doesn't look that super bright in the sky. And then I can actually duplicate it and add a smaller one over just the person. And I think here, the main thing I'm going to use is not exposure, but rather just plus white. Okay, so I think that looks pretty cool so far, but there's definitely some more stuff I want to do in terms of the colors. Is add another graduated filter, this time with minus whites, but just make the whole exposure a bit brighter, because as you can see before, it was just looking a little bit weird, too bright in some spots, definitely clipped, meaning there's no highlight detail in there whatsoever. But now we've recovered that. I can even duplicate, reset everything, and add kind of a warm tone going quite far even into the red tones here. Not too big of a filter, just kind of for the center here. Bring up the actual saturation, up the exposure, because then it makes it brighter while not actually making it super like weirdly clipped as the white slider would do. Duplicate that again, reset everything. It's really all about the radial filters here in this picture. Go for more kind of a bluish tint right here to the left. So now what I'm gonna do is go and fine tune that in the primary colors all the way at the bottom in the color calibration, and just add and see how it looks if I move around these sliders, because sometimes you can really change the individual look and hue of certain color and make it blend in with the whole picture a bit more. For example, here I really like the green tones quite a bit more. Bring down the blues a bit, up the saturation. So now again we've made it a little bit too bright, so I'm going to bring down the highlights slightly, bring down the whites a bit, go into the minus contrast to make it a bit softer looking. Then, as a very last thing, go into the right part here and just make it a bit more magenta-y, darker, but especially make it more bluish, because having this differentiation from blue to warm tones, not only in the sky, but also in the entire foreground and just the whole picture, can add so much to the look. Make it blend in very, very softly. Right click and duplicate it, bring it over here. So this picture, it does look a lot more sunsetty. I could definitely add more colors with radial filters and the color palette here, but you know, again, I think I might be already over 5 minutes, so let's just stop here and say that I'm done. Now, this is the raw file. This is the picture that I ended up with. Looks a lot more like taken at sunset. And of course, there's various other looks that you could go for. You can make it look more dramatic, less fake sunsetty. But this is just kind of one look that I found to work pretty well and looks pretty cool here. So thank you very much for watching. If you want to submit your pictures, then upload it to Google Drive and send me the link to your raw file in an Instagram DM. And if you want to support me and the show and stuff, then consider buying a print on my website or buying some of the gear that I use personally through the Amazon affiliate links in the video description. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next quick edit.